So game week, a little different energy out there today. Not that it hasn't been a really good training camp, and really pleased with our growth, but you know, game week is always just a little bit different. Took a little different approach where we made today a heavy practice day. Typically Mondays we're going to have more of a lighter practice day, but because we're coming off, you know, a walkthrough on Saturday and an off day on Sunday, we wanted to get after them a little bit and do a full 22 period practice. We'll take advantage of that by going Wednesday and Thursday to Spider Days and kind of get the guys fresh before we head to UMass. But yeah, I mean, it's been a really good training camp, and school starts today, and now we're getting ready for week one. Kind of a mystery walking in because they have so many new players, just like we're a mystery because, again, completely different staff in terms of the 3 coordinator spots and a lot of new players. So I guess a lot of that, first quarter or so is going to be feeling each other out. Again, I feel really good about, what we've done so far. I just think we're going to need the next 5 days or so to kind of finish everything up, getting ready for Massachusetts. I think everyone wants to talk about the quarterback position. We're really pleased that we have 2 guys that can play for us. I would be surprised if both guys don't play in the ball game. I'm not sure which one will roll out first, but it's one of those things where we felt really good, the growth of both the quarterbacks during training camp. So didn't see that happening. Thought we'd have someone go win the job, directly, but I think it's a good thing for us that we have 2 quarterbacks that can play at this level. So questions?
Is that kind of you saying that you'd be surprised if both guys don't play? Is that something that, like, I know you said at some point I'm going to huddle with Tyler. Is that something you guys kind of talked about over the weekend?
Yeah, I think, we're looking at the stats, and the stats are one thing, but they're almost identical, and they both done a great job. And I know Evan has elevated his game dramatically because Giovanni, from where we got him to where he is now is dramatically better. So it's a good thing. I mean, they both are guys that we think we can win with in this league. And I don't know if we felt that way when we first got here. I think Evan has grown dramatically. First of all, he's a single digit, so that tells you enough about his leadership and how he's respected in the locker room and those kind of things. But I think the bringing in McCoy sparked him to another level. And he's the greatest kid in the world, but even the greatest kids in the world need to be pushed. And there's no question Giovanni's pushed him. You can't take a breath because one's making the play, then the next one has to make a play. And so again, I think we kind of look at it like we got 2 that can play. We'll figure out which one we're going to put out there first, and probably at some point in the game we're going to be playing, both those guys. I don't ever like to get us in a situation where, hey, you're taking the first 2 series, and you pin yourself into situations that you don't want to do. So again, I think we feel really good that we have 2 guys who can play, and I didn't see it going down this way. I really was kind of felt that we would, see one rise to the top, and they both have risen to the top. Because again, I think we feel really good. I think the team feels good that we have 2 guys that can play. I think early on, the thought was like, well, maybe Evan might have the benefit of those other 10 guys are so comfortable with him. I think Giovanni really made some headways in the scrimmages where you could see that he really played well in those scrimmages. And again, I don't think any of our guys will blink who's out there that first snap or the 5th snap or the 30th snap, because I think there's a strong belief in both those guys from the team. So just sometimes that's how it works out.
What was your reaction to Evan sleeping here, doing 24 hours here?
Yeah, so when I first got here, wife's still in Texas, and I have really no place to go, and so I'm here till midnight and back in at 6. And I can't tell you the number of times I saw Evan in the back there at 11, midnight, or whenever, just going through stuff. That's who he is. It's not a show either. That's just who he is as a person. And that's why I like to tell the story about that very first or second, I think it was the first OTA we had in the summertime when Giovanni was here, and Evan showing Giovanni footwork on one of the pass plays, and it didn't surprise me at all, because even though Evan wants to be the starting quarterback in the worst way, he wants to win more than anything. And so he's like, this is my teammate. And he probably, the way Evan looked at it, because he's such a confident person, hey, if something happens to me and I go down, or we're gonna put a backup in, I need this guy ready. I mean, I'm sure that's how Evan looked at it. But yeah, I mean, not surprising at all, because again, when I was here during the off season, I saw the amount of hours that he was putting in.
You guys at the end of practice tape looked like you, I mean, it was just a typical practice. You and Tyler you didn't look pleased with the level of execution. What was
Yeah, so the very end, I tried to explain, you know, and that's the thing, is like, they have to understand, sometimes they're not gonna completely understand what I'm asking them to do, but I never ask them to do things just to ask them to do things. There's a purpose to everything we do. And so, we were in a procedural 2-minute drill. And procedural 2-minute drill is when basically I'm trying to show the offense and the defense, these are the things that are gonna happen in a 2-minute drill. You know, like, hey, they're gonna try getting out of bounds. They're gonna try killing the ball at times. There's times when they might bang a timeout. There's times when they might try to center the ball for a field goal. Great example is what happened Stanford and Hawaii. Stanford didn't use their timeouts at the end when, you know, it's pretty obvious they're in field goal range now. So I'm gonna see if I can save some time, so maybe I have 30 seconds left so I can try to go down and tie them or win it, you know, myself. And instead, you know, the head coach, who's really bright, Coach Reich is really bright, he let the clock go down to 3 seconds, and you know, then Hawaii called the timeout, kicked the field goal. He had 3 timeouts left. So those are things that I need to train myself too. You know, so I explained that to the team. It's not only are you doing these things so you can understand. It's not like well, if the defense wins, yeah, it's 3 and out, and so now we don't learn anything about a 2-minute drill. This is a procedural thing. And so the defensive linemen were getting a little bit further upfield than they should be. And that's the nature of defensive guys. They want to win everything. And it's like, you understand what we're trying to do is trying to win a game. And I'm not going to ask you to do anything just to ask you. There's a purpose to everything you do. Just like when the ball goes on the ground, it's a defensive drill. So I guess I'm letting the defense win there, right? But I'm telling guys, we're not jumping on the ball, getting anyone hurt. There's an interception. It's a defensive drill. So again, I think there's some growth that needs to take place. They have to understand a little bit, like, you know, we have to trust that in my 32 years of doing this, I've kind of figured out there's things that we have to do every single year to prepare for a game. And one of those things is we're not going to compete on a 2-minute drill this late in the year, or this going into a game. Spring ball, yes. Early in training camp, yes. But I'm not going to get guys hurt in a 2-minute drill. I just want procedural. So I just had to do some splaining, you know? And sometimes I can be very direct when I'm doing my splaining. So.
On defensive side, I think start of camp, linebacker was the big, you know, juggling act of guys. Where did you think you landed? How many?
Yeah.
I think, and how many might now you think play on Saturday?
I think we play 6. Yeah, and see the way our defense is put together, there are a lot of different like pairings, and so the one thing we're really deep up front, D-line and linebackers, and so we have these different groups that we can play in different situations, and a lot of that is to get guys on the field. Look at their strengths, look at their weaknesses, try to get the best guys on 3rd and 10. Let's get our speed group out there, you know, whatever it may be. 4th and a half a yard. Okay, we need these type of bodies. And so I don't think we had any really clear-cut winners at the linebacker spot. I think we felt good, like some guys played better than we thought they were gonna play. Some of the new guys came in and really established themselves. So yeah, we feel like there's 6 that can play. And again, I think, you know, our D-line is really deep. Our linebackers are deep. I think the running back position's deep. We got 2 quarterbacks who can play. So certain positions, I feel we have some really good depth. Other positions, we're a little thinner. Maybe a little thinner at cornerback, a little thinner at safety, a little thinner at wide receiver. You know, not that we don't have 2 groups that can play, but there's a significant drop off after that. A lot of young guys. But yeah, that D-line, linebackers, that running back crew, those rooms are really deep.
Who played better at linebacker? You said linebackers, maybe some guys played better than you thought they would.
Well, just bringing the new guys in.
Okay.
Like, you know, like Curley, you know, and Javante, you know, guys like that who were brand new to the program and you weren't sure how they're going to play, and you know they're playing pretty well. So I think, you know, Eric Stewart was coming off an injury. He's kept on getting better and better. Tyree, you know, is a guy who's really super dynamic. You know, you got to get him on the field certain times because there's things that he can do. So I just think it's a matter of now looking at our linebacker and say who can do what, and you know what's the best positions to put them in. And again, some guys will fit really well in those speed defenses. Some guys will fit better into those base rounds. Some guys are going to fit better like, hey, we have short yardage, you know, because they're better run stoppers. But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that we have, you know, I thought that was going to be a position that we had a lot of question mark on, and I think we feel good that there's, you know, 5 or 6 that can play.
Coach, I know there's a lot of unknowns going into this weekend. How much are you looking forward to seeing your guys battle someone other than
Yeah.
each other to see how they make out?
Well, and I've said this, you know, and I've been honest with them. You know, I like my team. I don't know how we're going to react under adversity. And I know this, Saturday afternoon, we're going to have some adversity. It's just the nature of playing this game. And so that's, you know, that's the one big factor you're just not sure of is, you know, when the bullets are flying, do we panic? And so that's why a lot of our conversations have been, we're in this thing together, like we'll fight through anything. I mean, I had a team last year that was down 22 points in the first quarter. And they found a way to come back and win 40-39 in the last play of the game because they just kept on playing. And so a lot of the emphasis has been like, the purpose is to go and win, but once the game's taking place, let's not worry about winning. Let's worry about executing that next play. If you get caught up with what the scoreboard is, oof, you can get distracted really quick. And all of a sudden, you're not locked in and focused on doing your job. Again, everything we're doing here is to go and win, but once we get in the game, let's worry about executing play by play by play. We haven't all been together. So that's why, I mean, I thought one of the smartest things Tubby Raymond ever, you know, said to me in terms of like coaching was, you can't simulate a game. You can do all these things to challenge them. A game is a game. Football's so unique. You know, the band's playing, you know, the commentators are there, your families are there, people are tailgating. You know, you warm up so much differently for a game than you do for practice. You know, you have a regiment for the game. You know, this group goes out now, then this group goes out, and we're stretching together. It's just so much different than practice. You just hope that the lessons that you've tried to teach them these last 9 months, they fall back on those lessons once things aren't going their way. Because there's going to be a point that things aren't going to go our way. You know, it could be a turnover. It could be a bad call. It could be, you know, an injury. Who knows? I mean, there's a million different things that can happen. Do you get caught up with that stuff, or you just move on to the next play and try to execute the next play? A lot easier said than done. And like I said, that's why there's such a mystery going into a first game.
Curly said from the limited, whatever they've seen on film, that looking at UMass's offense might be like a West Coast type of system with like a lot of eye candy. Is that what you're maybe anticipating?
Yeah,
as much as you
I think they're
can
going to want to
do?
try running the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a big part of what they want to do. And again, you know, I think if you look at our offense, you can't really go watch Montana State and say that's what Massachusetts, you know, that's what Temple's going to do against Massachusetts. Because with the personnel we have, we're a totally different offense than what Montana State did. And I'm sure it's the same sort of situation there. You know, what they did at Utah, and some of it was his stuff. I'm not sure if that translates to what they have at Massachusetts. So, again, there's a lot of mystery going into this one because there's just so much turnover in both rosters, so much coaching change. So I think it's going to be really important to get off to a fast start because, again, not having lived through going through adversity together, it's always nice playing from in front than behind.
You have to explain it to fans. I mean, it's coaching changes are commonplace, new rosters are commonplace for the portal. How do you prepare in a situation like this when, like you said, a lot of it is a mystery? How do you do it to the best of your ability?
Well, I think what you have to do is try to simplify your game plans because, you know, it's really tough to throw a lot together when you're not even completely sure what they're gonna do. So it's a lot about, just making sure that you have enough in that you can cover everything. Hey boy, they're living in 5 wide receivers. That's interesting. There were a lot of 3 tight ends in the past, So you gotta make sure that, okay, even though we think that 3 tight end package is gonna be something they're gonna be in, we gotta also cover the fact that if they go empty, or if they give us, 5 wides or whatever, we need to be able to put a group out for that, or be able to line up versus that. So that first game is a lot of, let's make sure we can do, take care of everything. Because again, you never can tell what you're gonna get. And a lot of time those first games, a lot of people try throwing some wrinkles at you to see if you did prepare to make sure that your bases, you can handle those kind of things.
You have a feel for Kevin Terry and Jalen Stewart, sort of how close they are.
Yeah, Jalen did a lot more today than he has. I think they want to get Kevin in some individual work, some more individual work out there tomorrow. Yeah, I think it's going to be touch and go with both of them. The good thing is, I think, linebacker's a spot that we talked earlier is a spot of depth. Getting Kevin back will be awesome, but I think, we've done a good enough job at that position where, if we can't play with Kevin this week, we feel pretty good that we're gonna get him for the rest of the season.
What have you seen from Jacoby in the time that
Yeah, Jacoby's a guy that Al Johnson had mentioned real early on. Like, here's a guy that when you look at him in drill work, he has all the ability. It's just he doesn't consistently put it together enough in the team reps. Well, guess what? Now he's got a ton of team reps. And sometimes those battlefield promotions where now you're forced to go in, sometimes you have to rise to the occasion. He's risen to the occasion. He's actually done a really nice job. There's times where you go, he might be our best offensive lineman. Now, it's not consistent enough, but our point is that he has the ability. And that's something that Al has saw really early on. Drill work, you shut your eyes and you open them up and you just watch him, you go, wow, that's a great rep. I don't know if anyone else here is gonna do that rep as good as you are. But do we get the next rep and the next rep? So being forced to have to play a lot, during training camp. Thank God the injury happened early for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have a chance to get Kevin back. Second thing is Jacoby got a chance to get a lot of game experience. Real live bullets are flying, good versus good practice reps that, he's gotten better and better and better. But yeah, in terms of just his talent level, he's as talented as any of the offensive linemen we have. It's just he was having a tough time getting from what he could do in a drill versus what he could do like in a scrimmage. Now he's been forced to. He's actually done a good job.
And I want to ask about. Oh, go ahead.
You talk about establishing consistency for Jacoby, but also just the entire offense and just like getting the reps and each other. What's that process been like? Just working and adapting to make sure they are consistently all ready to.
Well, and that's a lot of a first game is you're trying to limit this. You're trying to get a steady progression forward, and I think Tyler does a great job challenging those guys. I also know that as complicated at times the stuff that we do looks, he does a great job simplifying it too. And I think that's really important for a first game is that you want your guys to play fast. You want them to be able to put that foot in the ground and know exactly where they're going, offensively and defensively. So that's been one of my pleas is like, let's not, complicate this thing. I think like we like our team. We really do. And I've said this to them directly. It's my concern is that when the bullets are flying, you revert back to some poor habits that you had. And, that's going to be the challenge. But I think keeping your offense and defense as basic as possible and adding some wrinkles is the way to go early in the season because, again, it's going to be about execution. If we execute, I think we'll like the results on Saturday afternoon. If we don't execute, that's when we have a problem.
That's about Ty Davis. It strikes me you got 12 guys on the depth chart, 12 positions on defense, and it feels to me like you're like Ty Davis needs to be on this depth chart.
Oh yeah, no, and there's there's certain defenses that you'll see a lot of personnel roll in and out. You'll see a lot of different personnel groupings roll in and out. And Ty's a big part of some of those things we do. Plus also Ty is so critical for us on special teams. such a phenomenal special teams player, and has a leadership role like on punt protection and those kind of things. So, yeah, no, it's like sometimes it's tough to explain all the different defensive looks we can give you, and we're not using all this, even though we could use the same personnel, and just there's opportunities for us to change personnel out and actually get guys playing like exactly what their skill set is. And I think Brian does a good job with that. Like I said, we feel there's some depth up front. That front seven has some depth, and so we have some options in terms of how we want to roll in 3-man line, 4-man lines, those kind of things.
Is Ty the guy sort of with what he can do and his experience, like he's a guy on that defense that like you'll put him sort of in conflict?
Yeah.
Like he's gonna be the guy.
Well, and he's Roy Bright, and he also does a great job communicating. And that's such a critical part of this defense. It's just, communicating. And again, especially with an offense that's going to be taking tight ends and flopping them over and then motioning and shifting and things like that. It's important to have, a guy who does a great job communicating, and Ty does that. So, yeah, I think we're in a unique situation where because we have the depth we have, we don't have to play the same players that might be a little bit out of position in a certain scheme. Why not just get different personnel on the field? And so, given the opportunity, we will play with a lot of different personnel groups on defense.
What are your sort of, memories of Amherst, both living there and then playing, trips up to UMass?
Yeah, well, I lived with Jim Ostendarp, the head coach at Amherst, and what a character he was. He was truly amazing. And living on the 3rd floor of the house, and seeing that Peter Pan bus driving down the highway from our practice facility. Or actually our game facility. But yeah, and then playing up at UMass. I remember, I think the last time we played up there, when I coached at Delaware, they had their senior day. And it was the single longest senior day in the history of mankind. I mean, they were bringing out aunts and uncles and pets, and like, I've never seen a senior day where they're bringing the dogs out. I mean, it was like off the charts. And I remember just us all just standing there, just shaking our heads, and then we got after them pretty good and had a big win up there. But yeah, that's a memory of mine. It's the longest senior day ever in the history of college football.
What comes to you when you reflect on the opening game at a new job, of longevity at 2 previous places? Does it feel any different, or is that something?
Well, one of the questions I got was like, okay, like you decided that you're going to Temple, that's all worked out. Like, what are your, and one of my early thoughts was, that Friday night before the game, just that Friday night talk, just talking to the fellas before we go, and then just being out there with them. I mean, I get really attached to my kids, and that's why it was so hard for me to leave, Sam Houston, because those are my kids, and I've gotten attached to these guys very quickly. And I would be just to be in this with them and on the sideline together, trying to do something. And again, there's some challenges. We inherited a group that they hadn't had a whole lot of success. And, I'm hoping that they realize that we're all in this thing together, and there's going to be some things that are going to happen, and we're going to work through those things, but they just got to keep on charging on. Don't second guess anything. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's, post-game going to be, okay, how successful were we during the last 9 months getting everybody on the same page, which isn't easy. Again, because you can't truly simulate a game, it's hard to put people in that kind of conflict. During summer conditioning, there was a lot of conflict, but it's summer conditioning. I mean, so it's like you try to do those things, but again, you can talk until you're blue in the face, but you actually have to play the game and now live through a penalty or a turnover or a cheap touchdown or whatever it may be, and just trying to keep the troops all together. Most of my time, and one of the reasons why I don't call an offensive play or defensive play, most of my time is going to be managing those situations, just making sure that, hey, we've got 3/4 of the game you have to play. We just got to worry about the next snap. We're going to be okay here. Just believe in your talent. So again, that's going to be a lot of what's going to happen for me on Saturday. I could see myself doing a lot of reassuring. We're going to be okay. Hopefully you get a lead early, but it's football, and the ball can bounce a lot of different ways. That's for sure.
Last question.
You good? All right, thanks, guys.